Alright, I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to post here, but something happened that's been messing with my head for weeks, and I honestly don't know what to make of it. It's going to sound crazy, maybe even impossible, but I swear this is true. A few months ago, I started having this recurring dream. I was standing on a dimly lit stage, wearing clothes that looked straight out of the 1500s. The kind of thing you see in history books about the Elizabethan era, the ruffled collar, the doublet, even the damn feathered hat. The theatre was old, wooden, smelled like smoke and candle wax, and there were people watching me from the dark. I couldn't see their faces, but I could feel their attention. And every time, right before I spoke, someone in the crowd would whisper, "William, you were born to write this." Then I'd wake up. Every single time. At first, I laughed it off. I'm not the dreams have meanings kind of guy. I work in logistics, not literature. I hadn't written anything since high school essays. But the dream wouldn't stop, it got more vivid. I'd start remembering lines of dialogue from it, actual lines, like something out of Shakespeare's plays. Except they weren't from any play I recognized. I started jotting them down in a notebook, just to get them out of my head. But that's when it got weird. I showed a few lines to a friend of mine who teaches English at the local community college. He looked at the notebook, then at me, and said, "Where did you get this? This sounds like early Shakespeare drafts." That's when I started to think, maybe this dream wasn't just a dream. It felt like something, or someone, was trying to tell me something. And the more I wrote, the more my life started to change in ways I couldn't explain. So, after that conversation with my friend, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I mean, who dreams entire passages that sound like Shakespeare? I'm not some English scholar, I barely remember half of Romeo and Juliet. But then I started noticing things. First, I'd wake up with ink stains on my hands. I don't even own a fountain pen, but it looked exactly like that old-style ink, dark, smudged, and slightly metallic smelling. One morning, there was a small piece of parchment paper on my nightstand with a sentence written in that same ink. The handwriting wasn't mine. It said, "Dreams are but rehearsals of destiny." That line chilled me to my bones. I asked my girlfriend, Ella, if she'd been messing with me, maybe as a joke. But she just looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Said she hadn't seen any paper, hadn't noticed anything strange. Except she had started acting weird lately. A bit distant. She used to laugh at my random obsessions, but now she seemed irritated every time I brought up the dreams. Once, she said, "Maybe it's not Shakespeare you're dreaming about, maybe it's you trying to escape reality." That stuck with me. Escape reality? From what? Anyway, I kept writing. Every morning, I'd wake up with new lines in my head. Sometimes it felt like they were whispered to me in my sleep. I'd rush to my desk and scribble them down before they disappeared. Then one day, my friend called again. He said he'd shown some of my writing to a historian he knew, and that guy wanted to meet me. He apparently thought I'd discovered lost drafts or something. That's when the dream took a darker turn. That night, instead of being on the stage, I was in some kind of study, candlelight flickering, ink bottle beside me. I looked down and saw my reflection, but it wasn't me. It was William Shakespeare. And he looked terrified. When I woke up from that one, I was drenched in sweat. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break my ribs. In the dream, I was sitting at this wooden desk, writing frantically, like my life depended on it. The candle beside me flickered, and I could hear voices outside the door, urgent, angry voices. Someone was shouting my name. But it wasn't my name. It was Master Shakespeare. And then he, or I, turned toward a small mirror on the wall, and I swear, I could feel the scratch of his beard, the weight of the clothes, the fear crawling up his spine. It was like I wasn't just watching anymore. I was inside him. When I woke up, I could still smell the ink and wax. I told Ella about it over breakfast. She sighed, said I needed a break, maybe even therapy. I could tell she was worried, or maybe just fed up. I tried to laugh it off, but something in her expression bothered me. It wasn't just concern. It was guilt. That afternoon, I met with the historian my friend mentioned. His name was Dr. Calloway, older guy, sharp eyes, the kind that made you feel like he could see right through your excuses. I showed him the pages I'd written. He read them silently for a long time. Then he looked up and said, "Where did you get these? This could change everything we know about Shakespeare's early years." I told him the truth, that they came from my dreams. He laughed at first. Then he saw my face and stopped. "You're serious?" he said. When I nodded, he leaned forward. "Then I think you should keep writing," he whispered. "Whatever this is, it might be more than coincidence. There are theories about collective memory, reincarnation, ancestral echo." He trailed off, clearly thinking something he wasn't ready to say out loud. That night, I dreamed again. But this time, I wasn't writing. I was running. Someone was after me. And before I woke up, I heard a voice whisper, "Finish the play, or he will." I still don't know who he is. After that dream, I tried to take a break from writing, or at least from thinking about it. But it was impossible. The words followed me around like ghosts. I'd be at work, scanning inventory lists, and suddenly I'd hear fragments of 16th century dialogue echoing in my head. It got to the point where I stopped sleeping properly. So one weekend, I decided to clear my mind by visiting the old public library downtown, the kind with dust, creaky floors, and a faint smell of forgotten paper. I was sitting there, flipping through a random book about Shakespeare's lost works, when an older man in a tweed coat sat down across from me. I hadn't seen him walk in. He just appeared. He looked at me, smiled faintly, and said, "You've started hearing the lines, haven't you?" I froze. I didn't even know what to say. He introduced himself as a Thomas, said he was a researcher studying temporal resonance. Whatever that means. He told me that sometimes, creative minds from the past find conduits, people who unconsciously finish what was left undone. I laughed nervously. "So you're saying Shakespeare's ghost picked me to finish his work?" He didn't laugh. "Not his ghost," he said. "His destiny. Dreams are one of the few places time gets confused." Before I could ask more, he pulled something out of his coat pocket, an old ring. It looked like something from the Elizabethan era, engraved with strange patterns. "He wore one just like this," Thomas said. "If you put this on and dream again, you might finally see the ending." I told him that sounded insane, but when he left, he somehow slipped the ring into my coat pocket. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I put the ring on before bed. I dreamed again. Only this time, I wasn't watching or writing. I was acting. The theater was full. The audience applauded. But when I turned to take my bow, every face in the crowd was mine. And in the front row was Ella, smiling, but not at me. She was holding the hand of another man. I woke up from that dream feeling sick. It wasn't just the surreal horror of the audience full of my own face, it was seeing Ella there, holding someone else's hand, looking at him the way she used to look at me. I tried to brush it off as symbolic, like maybe my subconscious was just projecting fears or something. But deep down, it felt too specific. Too real. That morning, while she was showering, I glanced at her phone on the nightstand. I'd never done that before. I've always hated the idea of snooping. But something in that dream had cracked me open. I opened her messages. And there it was. A text from a contact saved as Mark. Mark, can't stop thinking about last night. You're incredible. Ella, don't say that here. He's been acting weird again. I think he suspects something. My whole body went cold. I scrolled up. There were weeks of messages. Flirting. Plans. Photos. All while she'd been telling me she was staying late at work. It's strange how betrayal feels both like fire and ice, like your blood freezes while your heart burns at the same time. I didn't confront her right away. I just walked out. No jacket, no wallet. I went to a small park nearby and sat there until dark, staring at nothing. And then, because my life had apparently turned into some bizarre play, my phone buzzed with an email from Dr. Calloway, the historian. The subject line was Urgent Discovery. He wrote that one of the lines I'd written matched an unpublished fragment believed to be from Shakespeare's missing play Love's Labour's Won. A fragment only a handful of scholars even knew existed. He asked me to come to his office immediately. I didn't tell Ella where I was going. And honestly, I didn't know if I was walking into a historical miracle or a breakdown. I showed up at Dr. Calloway's office around 8 p.m. The place was dimly lit, the kind of old university office that smells like parchment and coffee that's been reheated too many times. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, eyes sunken, hair wild. As soon as I walked in, he motioned for me to sit down. On the desk in front of him was a folder filled with papers, yellowed copies, handwritten notes, and a few modern pages that looked exactly like the ones from my notebook. He said, I compared your writing to authenticated fragments. The rhythm, the vocabulary, even the errors, are identical. Down to the ink composition. I blinked. Ink composition? What do you mean? He turned one of the pages around. You said you wrote these with a pen. But this isn't ballpoint ink. This is iron gall, the same formula used in the 1500s. I didn't have a response for that. My hand started to tremble. He leaned forward. You've been chosen for something. Whether by fate, by memory, or by something beyond us, I don't know. But you need to finish what he couldn't. There's a reason these dreams found you. That's when I noticed something on the wall behind him, a framed mirror. It wasn't there before, I swear. And in it, for just a split second, I didn't see myself. I saw him. William Shakespeare, staring back at me, eyes full of fear and recognition. His lips moved soundlessly, but I understood the words anyway. She betrayed me, too. The mirror cracked. I stumbled out of the office, barely able to breathe. I didn't even make it home that night. I drove around aimlessly, thinking about Ella, about the text messages, about that ghostly reflection. When I finally walked through the door around dawn, Ella was sitting on the couch, eyes red, phone in her lap. She didn't even wait for me to speak. She just whispered, "You saw it, didn't you?" "Yeah, I saw it." Every word. Every photo. Every emoji. I stood there in the doorway, still half in shock from the night before, from the mirror, from Shakespeare's eyes staring through mine, and now, this. The woman I thought I'd spend my life with was sitting there looking at me like a kid caught stealing candy, not like someone who just detonated a relationship. I didn't yell. I didn't even move at first. I just said quietly, "Who's Mark?" She froze. And in that pause, that heavy, nauseating silence, I swear I could hear the echo of that voice from my dreams, "Finish the play, or he will." "Finally," she said, "it's not what you think." I laughed. It came out broken and harsh. "Oh, really?" "Because what I think is that you've been sleeping with someone for weeks. Someone who calls you incredible. Someone you told about me." Tears started falling down her face. He's just someone I met at the gallery. We connected. I didn't mean for it to happen. You've been so distant lately, obsessed with your dreams, with Shakespeare. I felt invisible. That hit me. Not because she was right, but because it sounded rehearsed. Like she'd practiced that line in her head 100 times. You felt invisible, so you cheated. I said. That's your excuse. She covered her face with her hands. I don't expect you to understand. I wanted to scream, to demand why she didn't just talk to me instead of sneaking around. But I couldn't. My voice wouldn't come out. I just felt this deep, old sadness, the kind that doesn't belong to you. And suddenly, I remembered something from the dream, Shakespeare writing by candlelight, a woman's shadow standing in the doorway behind him. He'd been betrayed, too. By someone he loved. That's when I realized this wasn't just about me and Ella. It was repeating, history folding in on itself. I told her I was leaving. Not forever, not yet. I needed space. She didn't stop me. She just whispered, "You'll regret walking away." And as I stepped out the door, that voice, not hers, but the one from my dreams, whispered again, louder this time. He regretted it too. I checked into a cheap motel that night, the kind with thin walls and buzzing lights that hum like guilt. I sat on the bed, staring at the ring Thomas had given me. It glinted under the yellow lamp, those strange engravings catching the light in a way that almost looked like letters. For a long time, I just stared at it, wondering what the hell was happening to me. My girlfriend cheating, my dreams turning prophetic, my handwriting morphing into 16th century script. None of it made sense. Eventually, I slipped the ring back on. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me needed answers more than I wanted peace. And of course, that night, I dreamed again. I was back in the study, Shakespeare's study, only this time, it felt heavier. Like the air itself remembered heartbreak. On the desk was a letter, half burned at the edges. The wax seal was broken. I reached for it and read the words aloud. To betray one's muse is to kill it twice, once in heart, once in ink. Then I saw her. The woman from the shadows. She was crying, begging him to understand. It meant nothing, Will, she said. It was only a moment. And I slammed his fist on the desk, ink splattering across parchment. You've damned the words themselves. I woke up gasping, clutching my chest like I'd been the one betrayed. The craziest part? I remembered every word of that letter. I wrote it down before it could fade. Later that morning, I got an email from Dr. Calloway again. He said the new passage I'd sent him perfectly matched a rumored lost sonnet, one believed to have been written after Shakespeare discovered his wife's infidelity. I didn't know whether to be impressed or terrified. because suddenly it felt like I wasn't just remembering his pain, I was living it. And maybe, just maybe, my own betrayal wasn't a coincidence at all. After that last dream, I stopped sleeping properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel him waiting, Shakespeare, somewhere behind the curtain of my thoughts, pacing, whispering, pushing me to finish something I didn't understand. I started taking long walks at night, just to clear my head. One evening, I wandered into an older part of town near the university, narrow streets, flickering lamps, everything quiet except for the distant hum of traffic. That's when I saw him. A man standing under a streetlight. Same tweed coat, same old-fashioned stillness. Thomas. Only this time, he didn't look scholarly. He looked desperate. He called out, "You've been dreaming again, haven't you?" I hesitated. "How do you even know that?" He stepped closer, eyes shining like glass. "Because he's getting stronger. The connection deepens each time you sleep." "What does that even mean?" I snapped. "You gave me this ring, and now my life's falling apart. My girlfriend cheated, I can't tell what's real anymore, and I'm writing things I've never learned." He nodded slowly. "That's how it starts. His destiny needs a vessel. He was never meant to die before completing his final work. You're that chance." I laughed, a hollow, shaky sound. "So I'm supposed to just become Shakespeare?" Thomas looked almost sad. "You already are." He reached into his coat again, pulled out a worn leather notebook, and handed it to me. "These are the fragments of love's labors won, the ones that survived. You'll know how to finish them." I wanted to throw it away, but when I touched the cover, my fingers tingled. Like static, or memory. Before I could say anything, Thomas backed into the darkness. "Don't let history repeat itself," he said. "Don't let betrayal end the story twice." Then he was gone. Just like that. When I opened the notebook later, there was a line written across the inside cover in the same iron gall ink I'd seen before. "Dream and destiny are one, until the heart breaks." And I swear, I didn't write it. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just sat there in that motel room with the old notebook on the table, staring at it like it was a bomb that could go off if I blinked wrong. Every time I turned a page, the handwriting seemed to shift, sometimes Shakespeare's jagged loops, sometimes my own. It was like the lines were merging, becoming one story written by two men separated by centuries. And that's when it happened. Around 3 a.m., I looked up and saw movement in the mirror above the dresser. Not a reflection, an image. A room lit by candlelight, familiar now. The same wooden table, the same ink bottle. And sitting there, quill in hand, him. William Shakespeare. He was looking right at me. Not like a ghost, not like a hallucination, but as if he were seeing through time itself. He spoke, his voice barely a whisper through the mirror. "Your heart bleeds where mine did. The words seek their end through you." I whispered back, "Why me?" He smiled sadly. "Because you lived it again." And then I heard something else, her voice. Ella's. Faint but real, behind the mirror, pleading. "Please, Will, forgive me." He turned away, furious, and the mirror shattered, glass flying, cutting my arm. I jumped back, bleeding, gasping. But when I looked down at the table, there was a new line in the notebook, still wet, ink glistening. "The quill bleeds through the ages, love and betrayal need but one stage." I grabbed my phone and called Ella. She answered after the third ring, voice shaking. Why are you calling me? It's the middle of the night. I didn't even know what I wanted to say. Maybe an apology. Maybe closure. Instead, I just asked, "Where are you?" Silence. Then she said, "At home." Alone. But I could hear it, another voice, faint but male, in the background. Mark. That's when I realized the mirror breaking wasn't the end of the story, it was the curtain rising for the final act. The next day, I didn't sleep at all. I spent hours staring at the notebook, the ink, the smudges on my arm from the glass, and the creeping thought that maybe my life was no longer entirely my own. I knew I had a choice. I could walk away from it all, from Ella, from the dreams, from the strange destiny that was forcing Shakespeare's words through me, or I could embrace it and see it to the end. I also thought about Shakespeare. About the fragments, the quill, the echo of centuries whispering through my own hand. Maybe it was insane, maybe it was supernatural, maybe I was losing my mind, but the thought of leaving his work unfinished, of letting destiny die on that study floor, felt heavier than any heartbreak I'd ever known. By noon, I had made my decision. I would leave Ella. I would protect my own heart, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I had to preserve myself. And I would write. I would finish what he started. Even if it meant living a life that no one could understand, even if it meant seeing ghosts in mirrors and hearing voices in empty streets. I texted her. "We're done. I can't do this anymore. I need to find myself before I lose who I am completely." She replied almost instantly. "Please don't let the dreams take you away from me." I didn't respond. That night, I opened the notebook again, quill in hand. The candle flickered. The room smelled faintly of ink and old wood. And for the first time, I felt a strange calm. I was scared. I was alone. But for the first time, I felt alive. That night, I started writing. I didn't think about Ella. I didn't think about Mark. I didn't think about the dreams. I just let the words flow, as if Shakespeare himself were guiding my hand. The quill scratched across the paper, sometimes fast, sometimes trembling, and every sentence felt like stitching together two hearts across centuries, his and mine. Hours passed. I barely noticed the world outside. I could hear the faint hum of the city, but inside that motel room, there was only the quill, the ink, and the sound of my own heartbeat keeping time with the rhythm of the lines. Sometimes, I felt him beside me. Not a ghost, not a vision, just a presence, encouraging me. His voice in my head wasn't mocking or demanding. It was patient, almost relieved. "You understand now. This is why it chose you." I realized something while I was writing. Destiny isn't about fame, or legacy, or recognition. It's about answering the call, no matter how impossible it seems, no matter how much pain it brings. And then, just before dawn, it happened. The final line flowed effortlessly onto the page. I put down the quill and stared at what I had written. The room was quiet, except for the faint rustle of paper. I felt a strange lightness, as if a weight had been lifted. I had done it. I had finished the lost play. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel haunted. The next morning, I didn't rush to Dr. Calloway or anyone else. I just sat there with the notebook, staring at the final lines, letting the reality sink in. I had done something extraordinary, something I couldn't explain, but something that mattered. Eventually, I knew I had to confront Ella. Not to argue, not to beg, not to try to salvage what was gone, but to close the chapter cleanly. When I walked into her apartment, she looked up from her phone, surprised to see me. "I'm done," I said simply. She hesitated. I'm sorry." I shook my head. Sorry doesn't fix betrayal. I loved you, but I can't live in a story where trust dies every night. She tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. We're done. I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope he makes you happy. But I need to find myself too. No yelling. No tears from me. Just quiet acceptance. And as I walked out, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. Not freedom from her, exactly. Freedom from the weight of unfinished business, both mine and his. I realized that in order to honor Shakespeare's work, I had to honor my own heart as well. That night, I sat alone in my apartment with a notebook beside me, candle flickering, thinking about everything that had happened. The dreams, the betrayal, the ring, the manuscript, it all felt like one long, twisted rehearsal of life itself. I realized something important. Destiny isn't some mystical force that chooses you arbitrarily. It's a mix of timing, courage, and heartbreak. Shakespeare's words found me not because I was special, but because I was willing to see the truth about him, about history, and about myself. I thought about Ella again. I didn't hate her. I didn't want revenge. I just knew that some people are meant to be teachers in your life, not lifelong partners. And sometimes, betrayal isn't the end, it's the push you need to follow your own story. I also thought about writing. Not as a job, not as a legacy, but as a way to process life itself. I realized that each line I'd written in that lost play was part of me, my emotions bleeding into history. And for the first time, I understood what Shakespeare had meant when he wrote about love, ambition, and heartbreak. He had lived it, yes, but now I had too. By the time the candle burned low, I felt a calm I hadn't felt in months. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing: I was no longer running from destiny. I was writing it. Looking back now, it all feels surreal, like a story I lived but didn't fully understand until the very end. I learned a few things I want to share, especially for anyone who finds themselves caught between love, betrayal, and the strange pull of something bigger than life. First, destiny isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's hidden in dreams, in old manuscripts, or in moments that seem impossible. But it doesn't forgive hesitation. You have to act, even if it scares you. Second, heartbreak can be a guide, not just a wound. Ella's betrayal was devastating, but it forced me to see myself clearly. I realized I couldn't continue in a life that wasn't fully mine, no matter how much I loved her. Third, the past isn't just history, it's a living echo. Writing Shakespeare's lost play wasn't just about honoring him, it was about honoring my own courage, my own voice. Our lives are like unfinished manuscripts, and sometimes the most important chapters come from the hardest experiences. Finally, trust your instincts. If something feels bigger than you, don't ignore it. Embrace it. Even if it leads to heartbreak, even if it feels like madness, some doors only open once. I still dream of him sometimes, Shakespeare, standing on that candlelit stage, whispering lines that no one else can hear. But now, when I wake, I don't feel afraid. I feel ready. And maybe that's the real lesson: your destiny isn't something that finds you. It's something you write, one line at a time, even through betrayal, dreams, and the echoes of history.